So, chapter 21 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex is finally here, and let's just say that Sarada is indeed the honored one. Her Mangekyo ability not only allows her to fly, but also instantly crush her enemies into nothingness. We also have Boruto putting the fate of the world at risk when he saved Konohamaru by slicing and dicing Matsuri. So, as you can see, we have a lot to discuss, but of course, we're gonna start from the top. So the person on the cover is Sarada, and the title is Mangekyo Sharingan. Also, if you guys take a closer look, the page does display the Mangekyo ability itself, so that's pretty cool. Now the chapter starts with a flashback to a conversation Sarada had with Chocho, where she tells her that becoming Hokage is her dream, and Hokage like the 7th, which is referring to Naruto. And Chocho, of course, being Chocho, then says that all she really cares about right now is finding a boyfriend, and there's nothing wrong with taking it easy. And that's when Sarada remembers what Boruto said to her in chapter 10, which is that he wants to become a shinobi like her father and protect her when she becomes the Hokage. He then switched to the infamous panel that started all the shipping wars, where Sumire questions Sarada about if it bothers her whether Boruto is popular with the girls or not, and then goes on to state and proudly proclaim that it certainly bothers her. We then get this panel of Naruto, which I believe is from Naruto Gaiden, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, where Naruto says that to him, the Hokage is someone who thinks of everyone in the village like family. And this is what pretty much inspires Sarada to become an Hokage like Naruto specifically, which he also mentions again in chapter 1 of 2 Blue Vortex. We then get these new panels of Sarada running towards a certain destination, while saying that she's not an amazing shinobi. That is why I can't waste my time thinking about pointless things. I've got to protect the future of everyone in the village in order to become an Hokage like Lord 7th. And based on the fact that the next panel shows Boruto saving Sarada after Kawaki tried to kill her, I think the scene is supposed to be Sarada running towards that location after she found out that Kawaki was the one who tried to kill Boruto. It then showed Kawaki looking down at Sarada after Boruto saved her, saying that she should beat it, and asked her how many times is she gonna get in his way until she's satisfied. And this just reminded me of how crazy Kawaki was in part 1, man. Like, bro was ready to end the Uchiha bloodline right then and there just to kill Boruto. Like, I think the Boruto fandom forgot how crazy Kawaki can get, and that's because, you know, he's been taking so many L's in 2 Blue Vortex. But once those limiters get removed, man, like, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be crazy, but we'll see. But yeah, we then get a mashup of the events of Omnipotence, where Shikamaru is saying that they can't find Naruto, Mitsuki's trying to kill Boruto, and Sasuke thinks he's the enemy. So it does seem like Sarada is either remembering all of these moments, which I doubt is the case. It more so seems that the writer is trying to show us what led to Sarada awakening her Mangekyo, and I think, you know, this is a good way to do it. Now we then skip to a flashback of Boruto and Sasuke. And Sasuke says that the Mangekyo is a mutation of the Sharingan the Uchiha possess. The awakening of the Sharingan is triggered when you receive an extreme mental or emotional shock. He then goes on to say that something unprecedented happened, something that far surpasses us mere mortals' understanding. All of us are being tricked, that is what she told me. It is most likely the truth. To me, Sarada's Mangekyo was more than sufficient enough to serve as a basis of belief. So I think this pretty much confirms and we can drop the theories that Sarada used Genjutsu on Sasuke to force him to believe her. That isn't what the manga is telling us. And I know. It is still possible that Sasuke was placed under Genjutsu and he simply doesn't know it, which can be substantiated in Naruto because you do have Kota Matsukami that was used by Shisui, which allowed him to place people under Genjutsu without them ever knowing or ever finding out. They just live their lives until the day they die while under that Genjutsu's influence. So it is possible, I will say, but I do think that the writer is trying to tell us what happened, and, you know, we can just believe him. He then says that in order to stand against this situation, which is referring to omnipotence, those eyes will become a great source of power, which, by the way, is peak parental bias, because Sasuke doesn't know that this power will be useful, right? Like, what if she gained the ability to spawn water bubbles or, you know, to make someone taller, right? That isn't useful to anyone. And of course, you know, the Mangekyo literally does anything the plot wants it to, so luckily for him and the planet, he was correct, I will say. He then goes on to say something very important, which is that it seemed as though Sarada herself was unaware that she awakened it. And this has been a topic of conversation ever since this happened over maybe 2 years ago. It's been a while since Sarada awakened the Mangekyo. And you had one section of the fandom that believed that Sarada wasn't using the Mangekyo because she didn't deem it worthy to be used in those fights. while some others believe that, Sarada simply wasn't using it because she wasn't aware of it. And we have instances in Naruto where this has occurred. I'm not going to go over it again because I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me cover the same thing over and over again. So if you guys want to learn what I'm talking about, go and watch these videos on screen after this one. But yeah, just to summarize, there have been other examples of this when it comes to Obito, who didn't know he awakened Mangekyo, and later reawakened it. And then you have Mr. Sasuke himself not knowing that he awakened the Sharingan the same night Itachi killed his parents, and even Sarada herself awakening the Sharingan years before she did it on screen, which was confirmed by Sakura in the anime. Now Sasuke then says that the time will undoubtedly come when she realizes the awakening has occurred, and she should come to understand it instinctively, her own ability and what she can do with it. And that's when we skip back to present time finally, and we see Sarada using her Mangekyo ability. She then looks towards RYU and spawns a black object in mid-air, and RYU then tries to attack Sarada using his sand, but as it approached her body it then changed trajectory and got sucked into the black object. RYU then notices this and says, "What is this black sphere?" Uchiha Sarada, it's her ability, huh? Sarada then tells Mitsuki to take care of Araya and Yodo and focus on protecting yourself. She then tells him not to worry, she just awakened this ability, but she already fundamentally understands what it is. This goes into what I said in the prior video that every Uchiha instinctively understands their Mangekyo ability. This isn't unique to Sarada. This can be seen when Sasuke awakened Amaterasu and also when he awakened Inferno Flame Control. The same with Obito when he first reawakened his Mangekyo Sharingan. So it might seem a bit contrived, but it's just an Uchiha thing. It's okay. Now Mr. RYU is very smart as we deduce from the prior chapters. So after noticing that every time he sends his sand towards Sarada it gets sucked into the sphere, he decides to attack her from below. He then says to himself that if you're not in straight path to its orbit, it's not a problem. Which does appear to be true since Sarada does react to the ability, but she doesn't attract it using the sphere that's behind her. She then spawns a new one that's in direct path to the sand and then attracts it to that one. RYU then notices that she doesn't just have 2 spheres on the battlefield, there's at least 4 of them in different locations. Sarada then seems to target RYU because he starts to get pulled towards one of his spheres. Mitsuki then notes that this is the power of gravity after Sarada starts to float as well. Mitsuki then says that the sphere itself is likely generating gravity. RYU and his iron sand as well as Sarada herself are all being affected by it. Mie and Araya as well as the surrounding life forms remain unaffected by gravity. She's choosing it. Sarada is choosing the target. So yeah, Sarada's Mangekyo ability appears to be gravity, which is very similar to Pain's planetary devastation, which allowed him to target people and attract them towards a central point of gravity, which then traps them using the rubble generated by the surrounding. Though the endpoint of Sarada's gravity is a tad bit different, but we'll get to that part in a bit. Now RYU tries to save himself by using the sand as an anchor, but to no avail because that sand also got sucked into the sphere. Miss Sarada then pulls up, she's feeling herself and goes on to say that for a long time I chose to turn away. My goal of becoming the Akage felt so far away, so I became impatient. For every calamity that occurred, I was always unable to do anything. I didn't want to admit that I was actually powerless. I was scared to face that reality, so I turned away from it. Presses feelings, which is referring to Sumire, the unrest in my heart about what I truly thought about Boruto. Oh my goodness. I can see the fandom wars. I can see the wars that will take place just because of this panel right here. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I thought all that was just weakness. I was in denial, and without realizing it, at the same time, I was denying the power hidden within me. And this is so funny because after that deep shit that Sarada went into, after all that yapping, Ryu's just like, yo, quit the babbling, man. I don't really care. What's up with this emo talk, man? Let's get to it. But yeah, Sarada then obliged, of course, and she created a massive sphere. She then says if you run away from yourself, you can't confront the truths in front of you. You can't save a single person. And this also plays into the entire Yodo and Araya dynamic because, of course, Araya has feelings for Yodo that he hasn't confessed as yet. So I would like to see how that plays out. I'm not sure if Yodo is dead as yet. It does seem like she's dead, but it hasn't been confirmed. So let's see if they pull any shenanigans in the upcoming chapter to bring her back to life per se, or to just revive her to consciousness. But yeah, RYU tries to escape by pulling out a claw grime and trying to teleport using the claw mark on its body. And we then see his finger manifesting from the cube in the 10 tails dimension, and Jura seems to be aware of it, but it doesn't help him, which is crazy. Though Sarada then stops him by applying more gravity to his body, which stops him from being able to move a single finger. She then goes on to say that becoming a Kage is her dream. So first she has to start with accepting herself. And this somewhat reminded me of that waterfall scene where Naruto confronted the resentment he had towards the villagers because of how they treated him when he was a child. And he had to accept himself and believe in himself and let go of that resentment, because that was the only way to move forward and become the Hokage for those people. So I think that's what this moment here for Sarada represents as well. Now she then says Mangekyo Sharingan Ohirume, and she has the actual Mangekyo pattern that spawns in mid-air. So we actually see the Mangekyo design surrounding Sarada, including the black spheres. So this is very interesting. I doubt we've ever seen this happen before in Naruto. Of course, I'm going to do some research for you guys and see what Ohirume ties into, and then follow up with a video later on this week, so we'll see. Now what then happens is very interesting, because the ball of gravity or the sphere itself then collapses on RYU and turns him into dust, which then forms back into his Thorn Soul bulb. Mind you, every time Sarada used an ability throughout this fight, the emphasis was placed on her right eye, which means that we haven't seen Sarada's full capabilities when it comes to her Mangekyo. Everything that she's done when it comes to spawning the spheres or attracting RYU towards them and even causing it to implode on RYU, that's all just the ability of the right Mangekyo. So I just can't wait to see what that next ability is, and if you guys have any idea, just let me know in the comment section. Now Sarada then bleeds from her right eye and then collapses under the strain of the ability, but Mitsuki then catches her and brings her to safety, similar to what he did when Boruto transformed into Momoshiki for the first time. We then switch to Ada saying just now RYU was defeated with the help of Sarada's new power. Koji then says so she awakened it successfully. One of the most important outcomes of this battle was having her accomplish that feat. Ada then says that it's a shame about Yodo, but Koji says that it couldn't be helped. Her sacrifice made great contributions to the overall outcome. It was not made in vain. And Boruto then looks at Kashin Koji shocked and says, "Hey wait, Koji, answer me truthfully. Was there a future where everyone lived and Sarada still awakened her power?" Koji then says, "At the very least, I'll say this. If you attempted to provide backup, Sarada would have never awakened it." Boruto then says, "So you knew and didn't say anything about it. You said nothing to me about Yodo ending up like this." Koji then says that I judged there was no reason to tell you, and right now you have led me to the understanding that my judgment was not mistaken. So yeah, as I said before, Koji is willing to let anyone die to achieve what he wants to achieve. Now this doesn't make Koji evil per se, he's just willing to do what needs to be done. Boruto of course will try to save everyone, and Koji is willing to sacrifice anyone to ensure the survival of the planet. So if Konohamaru needs to die, he will allow that to happen, which is what led Boruto to finally realize this and asked him what's happening to Konohamaru. Can he win against Matsuri? I asked you a question. Koji then says, listen to this instead, Boruto. Jura has shared senses with other Shinju currently on the battlefield. If you show yourself in front of Matsuri, you'll be noticed immediately by Jura, and you'll be killed. I saw several patterns with that conclusion. And this of course being a non-answer to Boruto implies that yes, Konohamaru will indeed die. Because of course if he wasn't going to die, Koji would have simply told him and Boruto wouldn't have needed to go to that location. So of course Boruto is smart and he realizes what's about to happen. Then we skip over to Konohamaru versus Matsuri, and Konohamaru somehow managed to lose to a half-body Matsuri with no hands. And she says, how dare you trick me, you scumbag, I won't forgive you. And that's when out of nowhere we see a shuriken thrown into the back of Matsuri. Boruto then appears and draws his sword, then chops up Matsuri into very fine pieces, emulating my boy Future Trunks with what he did to Frieza. And it's so funny because it shows how fast Boruto is, because Konohamaru is still looking over to the side when Boruto first appeared, while Boruto has already appeared next to him and chopped up Matsuri while he's still looking over to that side. He hasn't even noticed that Boruto is in front of him and already killed Matsuri. But yeah, Koji starts to panic and says, that hard-headed brat, does he really want to make all of our efforts for naught? And that is when you see that Jura saw what happened through the eyes of Matsuri, and he goes on to say, so you have appeared Otsutsuki Boruto. The chapter ends and the side text says, Mr. Boruto relentlessly cuts through the future, even if it invites his own death. So yeah, that's it for the chapter. It was an awesome chapter, a lot happened, the fight was amazing, and Sarada now has one of the strongest Mangekyo abilities in the existence of Naruto, which is pretty insane. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and if you guys want to learn why Sarada's Choku pattern Mangekyo is very special, check out the video on screen. But yeah, with that said, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.